All right. Hi, everybody. So excited for this session. Audience has been a sponsor of Measure of Music since year two. I have used this platform many a times at work. It's a platform near and dear to my heart. So I am thrilled to bring them back and them back again this year. This time, Alex is going to be doing a presentation talking about how Audience helps out with the music industry. And so with that, Alex, please take it away.
Hello, thank you for having me on. Super happy to be here. So I am a data analyst at Audiense, and I'll quickly go over the presentation so you can see. But in this presentation, we're going to see how we can use data to start a marketing strategy and to inform our decision and verify our hypothesis, and how to use that data to base how we're going to be working on that strategy. So I'll just put it as a slideshow so you can see this bigger. So first, we're going to start with the quickest audience intro so that you know who we are, and then we'll deep dive into our use case. And then I'll give the quickest tour of our platform so that if you want to create your own marketing strategy using our data, you know where to get the information and how to interpret that data. So who's Audiense? We're a company that provides several platforms as service where you can gather data and profile your target audience. So it could be your fan base, or it could be a target audience that you thought of for a specific strategy. We have several platforms. The one that we're going to use for today's example is Audience Insights, which gathers its data from X, formerly known as Twitter. But we also have other platforms, like, for example, Soprism, which uses metadata, so Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, etc. We have many use cases from, SEO, from event organization, but in this case, we're going to see for marketing strategy. So let's get right into it. So if you're an artist, usually you can start more or less from two places to gather data on your target audience. Either you are a well-established artist and you already have a fan base that you can profile, or you don't have that fan base yet and you want to position yourself within a music genre. So for this, I thought that it would be interesting to have a look at the sad girl indie genre, because it's not as well known as pop or rock would be, but it's also a growing genre that has seen some very important artists like Mitski, who's had some of the biggest songs in 2023. So any good strategy starts with audience knowledge, which is why we're going to see directly who are the fans behind the sad girl indie genre. So we launched a project on the Audience Insights platform, and we've gathered some data about who those fans were. We saw that they were mostly female, pretty young, generally around 25 years old, and they tend to live in the United States. Their top networks are obviously Spotify, since it's free music based, but they're also on Discord, on TikTok, and on Twitch. They describe themselves as LGBTQ, as writer, artist, students. And we can see on the right side the segments that our platform has pulled up for us. So those segments are Taylor Swift fans, LGBTQ plus art enthusiasts, indie music writers, and people who review and write their opinions about politics. So from the get-go, from this information that you gathered on this slide, if you were to position yourself within the indie girl genre, you would already have a lot of good information for your PR. You can see that those people have put a lot of emphasis on activism, like you can see in the bio keywords that define themselves, Black Lives Matter. You can see that there's a whole political segment. So you already know that if you're going to collab with someone, you should really pay attention to how they position themselves and what their background is, because if you don't do it, then you can be sure that your target audience in this case will do it for you. From the top networks, you also know where to be. And you also know, because they're not your typical Facebook or Instagram, that those people tend to be a little bit more online than your average Facebook user, I would say. So now that you know who the people behind the sad girl indie genre are, uh, it would be interesting to know what interests them. So from the platform, we could see that they're very interested in movies and games. Like if you look at their top 10 brands, we could see that 10% of that audience, like A24, which is a movie studio, but you can also see other movie related interests. You can also see Minecraft and Nintendo at the bottom of the top 10 list. If you look at the top media, you're going to see Stranger Things, Netflix, Pokemon. So if you want to do some content, some ideas, you could start, playing video games or getting sponsored by some video games, and you know that it would be interesting for that audience. We also see that they follow accounts like Liminal Spaces, meaning that they're going to have a strong interest for aesthetic. We already saw as well before that there was a segment with artists. So you know that you have to really pay attention to the aesthetic that you're using, to those designs. And we could also pull the top influencers within that genre. So we have Claro, of course, at number one. We also have some strong influencers that aren't especially in that genre, but could be interesting for your strategy. Like we see that 29% of that audience really loves Zendaya. So if you have the budget for it, maybe include her in your music video if you can. But of course, not everyone has the budget for the biggest star in Hollywood at the moment. So don't worry, Audience Insights can also, filter by micro influencers. So that's what we did. We looked at any influencers that was very relevant for that audience and that was also under 100K followers. So we saw that number one was Soccer Mommy. And we did the exercise of who it would be interesting to get on a collab with Soccer Mommy. So we looked at the overlap within the audience to see if our theories matched. So first one that we saw was that Waste Blood shares 14% of that audience with Soccer Mommy. So if they were to collab, that would be super interesting. Then, since we have a very online fan base, we wanted to see with a creator, if a creator that comes from YouTube, which is the case for Joji that you can see in the second level, if that would be relevant for that audience. And yes, we can see that 9% overlap. And then we wanted to test the number one YouTuber that we saw in the main audience, which was Danny Gonzalez. And we can see that she shares a 6% overlap with him. So all those collabs for Soccer Mommy would be quite interesting. So now that we've looked at the main interest of that audience, it is interesting to see also where we can find that audience. So we've identified with the platform that 5% of that audience was in Chicago. So we launched a project, an analysis specifically on the sad girl indie genre people who lived in Chicago. And we looked at their top venues. And we've identified that you could find them in the Metro or the Music Box Theater or Lincoln Hall or the Hideout. And so if you were an artist, it would be super interesting for you to be around that area, to play at those venues or somewhere close. But even more interesting, we wanted to know if those were also frequented by music producers. So we launched an analysis as well on music producers in Chicago to see if it matched. And you can see on the right side that in the music producer audience, a lot of them matched. So we have the Metro, we have the Hideout, we have Lincoln Hall, we had others with the addition of Do 312, which is also close to that area. So this area if you were to position yourself in the sad girl indie genre, would be extremely interesting. We were also able to pull the top events for the general audience. And we can see that, for instance, Primavera Sound is going to be an important location for those people. So now that we went around a little bit, keep in mind that we could deep dive much further into any of those information. Like if you wanted to get a sponsorship and you wanted to know specifically about tech brands, maybe you could also pull that. So we could go much further into each of these elements. But let's give a few examples of what you could do from just that bit of data. So the first picture example is we saw that there was a lot of interest for Stranger Things. So, for instance, Panic at the Disco, for their music videos of LA Devotee, they had one of the main actors in Stranger Things prominently featured in the music video. So that was an example. Or the second example, which I think is one of the most relevant, is the case of MXM Toon, who is a singer who is in the sad girl indie genre. She has the song Prom Dress. And she gained a lot of attention in 2020 because she was ticking all these boxes. She was collabing with online personalities that were a little bit in the gaming sphere. She had a Twitch channel. You can see the rainbow flag in the background. She was part of the LGBTQ as well. So that was an amazing example. Another example is that you could perhaps collab with Danny Gonzalez. We saw for the case of Soccer Mommy that it would be relevant. At the bottom, first pick, you have a screenshot from a music video for Boy Genius, and you can see that she went with an animated, artsy kind of style, and we already know that we have a lot of artists within the audience, so you could perhaps collab with one of the famous artists, or you could pay attention to that design and maybe get in touch, organize contests with those artists and things like that. Then the second picture on the second row is from the trailer for Primavera Sound, and you can see there's a huge Mitski billboard, so that's extremely relevant. And finally, as we were saying, the aesthetic is really strong for that audience. So we took a picture, for instance, from Clairo's social media, and you can see that she's going for that very nostalgic, kind of liminal heart flashlight kind of aesthetic in her picture, which is very effective for that audience. But of course, the limit is your imagination. As long as you have the data to help yourself when you make decision or to back it up, to verify your hypothesis, your imagination's the limit. And this is about all of this for the example in the use case. And now I propose that we go quickly into Audience Insights as a platform so that you would know more or less how it works. So I've got it right here. And so you can see the Sad Girl Indie report that I've made, as well as a Sad Girl specifically to Chicago. So in your case, if you were to do the same as I did, you would go in Create a Report, and then you would pull profile attributes, and then you would ask for followers of several artists that you find in that genre, and then you would launch your report. And it would look like this. So if I dive into it, you would first see a general summary of your audience. Like, as you can see, female, 25-year-old, United States. You can see here already the segmentation. If you deep dive a little bit more into it, you can see a little bit more of a summary of those segments, but you could also go into each and every single one of them to get all the information that you want. You can see top hashtags. I was saying lots of politics in there. And if you go into it, we always work with comparative analysis. So you're seeing information highlighted in compared to the US in this case. Since 50% of that audience was from the US, we thought it would be more relevant. And you can see that you have demographics, and you can always see the percentage compared to the benchmark. And yes, you can see where I took Chicago from. You can see here the bio keywords, because it's always a great way to know who your audience is. It's to look at how they define themselves. Of course, you've got socioeconomics, you've got influencers and brands, which is a tab that I really like, because this is where you really see who are the people they're following, what are the brands that matter. But you could also, if you're looking for something very specific, filter it to highlight what you're looking for. So I was talking about micro-influencer, but maybe if you were looking into tech, you could go into one of the categories that we have here to get specifically tech brands or tech influencers. You also have the interests here. You have media affinity, which is where we got our TV, but you also have, radio, newspaper, events, which is where I got Primavera. You also have the type of content that I've interacted with. So, who are the people they mention, what's they comment, etc. You have their personality, if you want to know how to talk to that audience, and what kind of aesthetic they like and how they are different to the overall population. And also one that I really like is online habits, where you see the networks that they're most likely to use, because you already get an idea from that of where they are and what kind of content they might consume. And that's about it for the tour of the platform. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to know. Can you see where the data is coming from? Basically, for this platform specifically, it's always going to be X data. So you already know that when you get into the platform. But if you were curious about other types of data that we have, we can always, we also have Soprism, which has the metadata, and we will soon be getting also LinkedIn data. Right. Is it possible to use this for general audience analysis as a researcher, or do you have to prove yourself as an artist company to use it? You could analyze any type of audience that you wish. So basically here, for this specific case, it was easier to showcase a music genre or an artist. But if you were to want to target mothers who work in, maybe as nurse, or if you want to have people who are interested in tech, you could do that. You don't have to be established or anything. You just have to know, who you want to know more about, and you could profile that. You could even go even more niche if you wanted to. But yeah, for instance, we've done some luxury segmentation. We've got some fans of cars, etc. What is your best advice for someone who wants to be an analyst in the industry like yourself? That's a nice question. I'd say that my best advice would be to read a lot. Get yourself informed, be curious, always look at what's happening around you, always look at what other companies might be doing. Just always have as much input as you can get to be inspired. And surprisingly, if you're scared about that, you don't need to be that good at mathematics. Because that was what's scary. What was scary for me is like, do I need to be super smart with math? Not the case. You just have to be like very curious. Can you see similarities throughout an audience, such as trans fans in a fan base across platform? Similarities throughout an audience. Do you mean if you can compare different type of audiences? If that's the question, yes. So basically, the benchmark that I showed was the United States. But if you wanted to compare the differences between, let's say, Mitski fan and Claro fans, You could very much do that. I would always recommend first starting with a base general global population so that you learn who your audience is, and then look at what's the difference with another type of audience, because you might get some very different results that might make you do some mistakes. Like, for instance, if you compare your company to the global population and you see that your fans are super green and into activism, and then you compare yourself to your competitors who have more people who are interested in activism, in comparison, it will look like your audience isn't interested in activism, but that is not the case. It just means that your audience is less interested in activism than your competitor. So that's what I would recommend, to always start with normal benchmark. But yes, you could compare with other type of audiences. Does your company have a consulting service? I suppose it would be a very interesting role to work for Audience as a data interpreter. So we do have a consulting service. We mostly sell our platform usage. So that's the bulk of what we do. We give access to the platform, and then people go on from there with sometimes our help if needed. So yes, we do have a consultancy service. It's just not the one that we advertise the most, but I do happen to be part of the consultancy service, and it's a good service. I have to say, it's a fun one to work at, and it's lots of creativity involved to interpret the data and know what you could do with that. So we do have it, to answer your question. Glad to hear the math isn't a deal breaker. Thank God, right? Otherwise, it would be much harder. Let's see if I didn't miss any question. This is very certain data. Dandy Gonzalez. I don't think I missed any question, but if I did, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no problem. I think we got everything. I think we have time for a few more questions if anyone has a few more questions for Alex. All right, here we go.
What technologies do you use the most in your analysis? I'm not sure I quite see what the question is. My apology. But maybe I can say that we do use quite a lot of social listening tool with our platform, because we have a few integration and they go very well together. So it allows us to see what our target audience talks about, and in reverse, what the people who are talking about, who they are. So this is great for PR. So for instance, in the case where your Samsung phone blows up and you want to know if your fans hate you now, you can look at what they say with the social listening tool, see that they don't care, and that it's mainly other types of people who are actually talking about your phone blowing up. So social listening tool is really nice to pair up with Audience Insights. What kind of experience would be helpful before stepping into a data analyst role? Great question. I can't speak for everyone, but for my part, I did a small internship in marketing and community manager. And I think that seeing how the agency I was an intern at was using that data, because they were using Soprism, they were using Audience Insights, seeing how they use that data to inform their strategy was really an eye-opener. And then you learn even more while doing that job as a data analyst. What level of customer support and training does Audience offer to its user? Great question. So in the self-service kind of deal, we have a lot of article resources, use cases that we can provide. We have like an extensive library of articles on that, a huge FAQ center. I know as well that you can always contact support and get a reply. We also have chat box with real people behind it to answer your questions. So that at least you have. And then we have some specific other offers where you get assistance from solutions teams, that they look at your case and how to best start it. Asking a bold question on behalf of my friend and I in this session. Are you all taking interns? We might be. That's a good question. I should have asked before. I know that we have taken interns in the past, so always try, maybe apply, and who knows, but we might be. Can you see trans community as fan base across different platforms or just one platform? On Audience Insights, it's just going to be X platform. But we do offer as well other services that look into like multi-channel reports that allows us to get information from other sources. But I'm not too much into that service. So I can't give you like the details and nitty-gritty, but I know that is something that we do. Is the tool accessible price for indie artist access, or is it more intended for agency? We offer a lot of different types of packages. I know as well that if you want to test it, we do have trial versions too. But I think that it is quite affordable depending on the package that you take. But I would have to know more from the sales team, to be honest. But yes, we don't only have agencies, working with the tool. So, and we have quite a few trials and people who, after the trial, managed to get access to the tool full time, and so it is pretty affordable. What data languages do you have to know if you would like to pursue career as data analyst? Aha, that's a great question. I don't think you need to know anything really specific. The position as data analyst, what you're going to have to deal with is going to be very different from position to position. I know that some people in my team, they have to work with some stuff that I do not even understand. They're doing coding and things like that. That's not my case. So it really depends on the place where you're going to work. There are lots of products with different pricing: Insights, Affinio, and Meta. So the one I presented to today was Audience Insights specifically, just so you know. It is somewhat, it deals with social intelligence, just like Affinio, if you want to know, while Meta Insights deal with digital intelligence. Profiling. I really like the in-depth profiling of music markets. What are some of Audience long-term goal as a data platform? Great question. So we're always looking to increase our reach, get access to more data, to be able to answer to more and more use cases. Like I said, we were going to add LinkedIn within a year to our data. We always try to find out new use cases that we could present and push the limits of our data, put new tools, also get new partners so that we can offer as many services as we can. So yeah, I would say just grow bigger and bigger and be able to offer as much data as we can offer. Have you seen the quality of data on X Twitter change? That's something that has worried some people regarding the platform, but we haven't seen any significant drop. We haven't seen any significant change either. The data has remained quite similar ever since this year, the year prior. So we haven't really noticed any significant change in that regard. To be a data analyst and not have to code is my dream career. Indeed. I mean, coding is nice, but yeah, it can be a little scary, I do admit. Yeah, I think I also, is the company currently profitable is one that I missed. I think so, yes. Sometimes when I do look at the graph, it can be a little complicated, but yes, it is currently profitable.
Oh, thank you so much, Alex. I think we've gotten all of the questions in. I love the lively conversation. One thing I will add to everybody is Audience is participating in the career fair tomorrow. So for those that were interested in getting a job or an internship with Audience, pop on into the career fair booth during the networking. Alex won't be there, but one of her colleagues will be there for you to meet and talk with about the platform. And there will also be part of the sponsor expo as well. So if you're curious about how the platform works, how you can integrate it into your work or anything along those lines, you can talk with them about that as well. So that's really exciting that everyone expressed interest because I also agree that Audience is a really cool platform and there are very few like it. Another note for our participants is that you'll have access to Audience for the entirety of the weekend, so you'll be able to incorporate all of their data into your projects. So I'm really excited to see what everyone pieces together, and I'm really excited about the new data offerings too. I didn't know about this until Alex said it, so very exciting. So many cool things happening. Yeah, so I think that's it, Alex. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being such an amazing audience. That was super nice to be here.
Oh, great.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thanks, Alex. One thing I want to note before we wrap up this session, I forgot to mention earlier, so I apologize. Closed captioning for those that need it or want it. You use the browser's option for closed captioning. I will in the next session. I'll drop a link into the comment section so you know about it. But if you're using Google Chrome or if you're using Firefox, you should be able to turn on closed captioning yourself so that you can follow along that way as well. And apologies for not saying it earlier on. I want to make sure that everyone knows that that's an option and something I thought about when we went into this new platform. So with that, we're going to have a bit of a break before our next session, but I am really excited to welcome BandLab for the first time. So we'll hop off for now, and I'll see you all in the next session. Thanks, everybody.